You're listening to The World at 8 with Lynn Mozart. The World at 8, the number one in nationalist news.
Highlights of the news today, Monday, the 4th of November 2013. Green energy triples UK fuel prices, may kill thousands over winter. Queue here to work in Britain. Bishop fears Sharia bonds pave way for more Islamic law. Greece's Golden Dawn accuses government of neglect. Greece, police identify semi-automatic pistol used in slaying of 2 Golden Dawn party members. Melting starfish along the west coast prompt Fukushima concerns. 4-year-old girl raped at school in Pakistan. In midst of Syrian war, giant Jesus statue arises. Nepali Hindu leaders ban women from school during menstruation. Thought for the day, Charlene, the truth, but not as the media sees it. And finally, Tesco's 2 for 1 again. UK news. Green energy triples UK fuel prices, may kill thousands over winter. While Prince Charles preaches the cant of global warming and admires the lifestyles of the poor in the third world, the United Kingdom is headed deep into a well of frozen misery. Green energy has meant electric poverty as cheap and efficient sources of power and heat are traded for hideously expensive and inefficient solar and wind power. That's fine for those cashing in, but prices energy out of the range of many ordinary people. Queue here to work in Britain. 2 months before doors open to more EU migrant workers, NHS, fast food firms and hotel chains recruit cheap labour in Romania. Ahead of Britain opening its borders in January, weekly job fairs are being held in the capital, Bucharest. And dozens of recruitment websites are advertising low-skill jobs in this country, some offering the promise of cash daily and others claiming knowledge of English is not necessary. The roles vary from minimum wage bartending to a £34,000 a year job as an NHS midwife, which comes with a relocation package, raising questions over the costs of such overseas recruitment. One advert reads, "Britain will remove restrictions on the labour market from 2014. Do not miss the start." World at 8. We are just shooting ourselves in the foot yet again, or rather allowing ourselves to do so. Employers and greedy agencies, usually set up by ethnic minorities, will really love this one, while the Brits will just whine about it. Bishop fears Sharia bonds pave way for more Islamic law. David Cameron's plans to issue Sharia-compliant bonds open the way to Islamic law being enforced at the heart of a government, a senior clergyman has warned. Dr Michael Nazir Ali, the former Bishop of Rochester, said proposals to make Britain the first non-Muslim country to sell a bond that complies with Sharia could trigger a series of unforeseen consequences. World at 8. He's right there, this is Millipede's dream. European news. Greece's Golden Dawn accuses government of neglect. Greece's Golden Dawn party has expressed anger after 2 of its members were killed on Friday in a drive-by shooting outside the movement's offices in Athens. In a statement released on its website, the party accuses the government of neglect, claiming that requests for police protection after recent threats against the party were ignored. Greece, police identify semi-automatic pistol used in slaying of 2 Golden Dawn party members. Police investigating the slaying of 2 members of the Golden Dawn party and the wounding of a third say the gun used in the Friday evening attack had not been used in previous terrorist attacks. The assailant fired 12 rounds from a Zastava Tokarev type semi-automatic pistol, police say. A police source speaking on condition of anonymity because officers were not authorised to comment on the ongoing investigation said Saturday that a video from a nearby security camera confirmed accounts from Golden Dawn lawmakers that the assailant started firing from 15 yards away and finished off his victims from point-blank range. The gunman fired at a 4th Golden Dawn member who managed to enter a building unharmed. World at 8. My thoughts are with the families of these men who are true patriots of Greece. They were brave enough to fly in the face of what is now virtually a socialist-controlled and poorly financed government. A Marxist ideal, in fact. World news. Melting starfish along west coast prompt Fukushima concerns. Scientists are attempting to find out why one species of starfish is literally melting in the waters off the Washington state and Canada. Biologists in Seattle took to the Puget Sound waters last weekend to collect sick and healthy sunflower starfish for testing. Several labs, including one at Cornell University, will examine and compare samples with Canadian specimens already being analysed. "We've got some sea stars that look like they're melting on the bottom," Seattle aquarium biologist Jeff Christiansen said. Whether the cause is environmental or disease related is currently unknown, but the number of melting starfish increases drastically with each passing day. World at 8 comments. Poor little things. Fish don't melt unless there's acid or radiation present in the water, do they? Apart from the fact of probably dumping illegal chemicals or faulty chemical factories nearby, blame Fukushima. 4-year-old girl raped at school in Pakistan. A 4-year-old girl in Pakistan has been taken to hospital in a critical condition after being raped by her teacher. The child, identified only as Sumaya, was at a madrasa Quranic school in Vihari in the country's eastern Punjab province. The local police chief, Rao Tariq Pervez, said that the attack took place on the day the child started attending lessons for the first time. World at 8 states. Poor little mite. And the Pakistanis complain about our free schools. At least white teachers don't rape 4-year-olds. He should be shot. In the midst of Syrian war, giant Jesus statue arises. In the midst of a conflict rife with sectarianism, a giant bronze statue of Jesus has gone up in a Syrian mountain, apparently under cover of a truce amongst 3 factions in the country's civil war. That the statue made it to Syria and went up without incident on October the 14th is remarkable. The project took 8 years and was set back by the civil war that followed the March 2011 uprising against President Bashir al-Assad. So why put up a giant statue of Christ in the midst of such setbacks and so much danger? Because Jesus would have done it, organiser Samir Al-Gadban, director of the London-based St Paul and St George Foundation, quoted a Christian church leader as telling him. World at 8. Bear in mind it was started under the total rule of Bashir al-Assad, and that is telling. He is the only fairly moderate Muslim leader left in the Middle East, which is why it is fanatical jihadists rebelling. They don't want a moderate Islamic state, they want Sharia, total Wahhabism and nothing less. This statue must be guarded closely. Nepali Hindu leaders ban women from school during menstruation. Hindu leaders have banned thousands of Hindu female students from going to school when they menstruate because they are deemed impure. Once limited to confessional schools, now the ban covers many public schools in Nepal's western and northern districts. Speaking to Asian News, Hindu leader and educator Chintamani Yogi said, "Such a practice is not part of Hindu tradition. Anyone who uses religion to impose it is lying." The ruling by religious authorities in the western and northern districts has raised eyebrows in the government as well. For this reason it is taking action to avoid these phony practices, but it will be a gradual process, Nepali Education Minister Madhav Pudel said. World at 8. It is well known that during menstruation Hindu women are considered unclean and in days of old were sent to separate rooms to live during that time. No man was allowed to even see them. They were put into purdah. Nothing changes with some religions. They are back thousands of years, as in this case. Thought for the day, Charlene, the truth, but not as the media sees it. Now we have just recognised the 10th anniversary of the so-called disappearance of Charlene Downs. We have to say disappearance because no one, only her murderers, know the actual date and time of her killing, dismemberment and input into a kebab, which was probably sent to one of the many eating establishments owned and run by relatives of the 2 Muslims who were tried for her murder, but got away because of the sheer inefficiency of the police, or rather the fact they were told to lose this case and bury it, which they did with abnormal efficiency in cocking up the telephone evidence. Of the police officers involved in the first and second debacle, 1 is dead and the couple have retired and the rest have been relocated. Apparently, joy of joy, there will be a new team of idiots to resurrect this case, and already the media, of course, playing to the gallery and the pit, are already printing defamatory notices about the possible home life and sex life of the victim, Charlene. As you know, even without my pro-fam hat, this form of sexual abuse of minors has always been, along with immigration, my particular flag to fly, and together with the undercover work I've done and the research, these papers, notably the Times and Daily Mail, are flying very close to the wind in what they print. Every nationalist, every thinking man or woman, and every mother and father knows that the police especially have been told that if they want to preserve community cohesion and survive the force long enough to collect their pensions, very little attention is paid to the perpetrators of most of this form of sexual grooming and abuse. It never fails to make me hopping mad when you see articles and pages online written specifically about this very nasty and fairly new to the UK form of degradation, carefully written by Tazeen Ahmad and that most prolific of arse-lickers, Andrew Norfolk, for in the Ahmed text the man or men are referred to as just that, men or man, not Asian and certainly not Muslim. I know Norfolk and Ahmed, although they would not remember me. Both attended the Coalition Against Pimping conference, which was held a few days after the Channel 4 so-called expose on Britain's sex gangs, where, as I have already reported a few years ago, no mention was made of the men's ethnicity or religion either, although they did have a couple of local Muslim do-gooders as a token. An unknown woman, not me, towards the end of that bit of theatricals, asked about the missing girl in Blackpool, and she was summarily taken out of the room forthwith. That question was never answered, either by Ahmad, Norfolk, the police commissioner, or the other celebrities or social services teams present, but all that is in my reports and previous thoughts on World at 8. So finally we have this case reopened. This is especially poignant as Charlene went missing exactly 10 years ago and no police investigation occurred at that time, and in fact was only rehatched when Paige Shivers went missing around 4 years later from Blackpool, and young Paige was known to frequent the kebab houses that Charlene did. Now, I'm not a moralist. It isn't my forte to cast the first stone. There but for the grace of God go I or my children. How do we know how we would react living in the same town or circumstances? Even, and I mean even, if Charlene had been an abused child, even if she did give blowjobs for chips, even if she had been expelled from school, and even if she was a tearaway, that does not give anyone the right to kill her, dismember her body and dispose of it so her family can never have the closure of her burial. No one has the right to do that in this country or indeed any other country and get away with it. She was 14, for God's sake. Where is the public sympathy? Where are the Lawrence-style demos and renting of garments? We nationalists have been blamed for the fact that we honed in on the truth about these groomings years before they reached the publicity angle or the television reporters. And when we discovered and were told it was mainly males, young and old, of the Muslim persuasion, the universal mantra of racism cropped up and has muddied the waters with the establishment ever since. They can all form all the investigations they like, call them whatever they like, Chalice or Yew-Tree or Huckleberry Hound for all I care. They do not do their jobs. And why? Because to all the authorities it is much easier and quieter to say a lot but do nothing. Because if they ever started to really investigate these groomings, it would involve bashing down Muslim doors, going into local mosques, interviewing Muslim women and their families relentlessly, shutting down the businesses that fund this disgusting traffic, the takeaways, the corner shops, the taxi shops, the petrol and garage forecourts, the halal food shops and everything that provides the means for these men to single out, groom, introduce to their relatives who subsequently rape and degrade very young girls in houses specially bought or rented out by these peaceful Muslim community members for that purpose to their sons or brothers. And of course shut down the drugs that also are peddled through these sources. Can you see our great British public media machine not capitalising on that one? Poor Muslims, I hear you say. I know so-and-so next door, charming chap, lovely family. I'm sure you're right, but just check on whether his son isn't in the grooming gangs first. The real truths that are never published either at all or for a very long time are: most of the men behind these gangs are Muslim. Any ethnicity, and that includes British white converts and can include Eastern European Muslims as well. However, most are immigrants or from immigrant families. The girls are always very young, from 11, 13 at the start. Not all these girls are from challenged homes or in care. These groomings are not the same as the Seville or the historic sexual abuse cases, as these were usually slightly older girls on the pull for a celeb, and groping is not full-on gang rape day after day, night after night. The groomed girls are seen as money-making whores, not girlfriends or lovers. They are fed contraception pills, booze and drugs to pacify them, but as little actual financial outlay goes into it as possible. Until our authorities tackle the immigration and Muslim problem, this particular form of grooming is here to stay. It has been over here since the second wave of Muslim immigration into this country started around 35 years ago, and was a local talking point in Liverpool around that time. So to Ms Ahmed I would say stick to writing books on being a supermarket checkout girl. That way at least you would not be hypocritical insofar as pretending to care about our children whilst taking blood money at the same time. The Mail, of course, in all its glory, have printed an Ahmed article on Sunday in which she sympathises with the group called Mossack, who helped abuse children. And this is a whammy. The next 3 pages is full of what are probably white families busily abusing their underage children. Now, we all know this goes on. It is terrible for both the non-abusing parent, grandparent or uncle, whatever, and of course the child involved. But for Ahmed to prostitute her so-called talents when she has much more to write about on her own home territory is typically endemic of what the media are doing now, along of course with the police force. They have taken over denial, which is of course a river in Africa, but also the UK media and police mottos for anything concerning sexual abuse. So we have reports on Iranians being killed because they are thought to be paedophiles by whites, pizza delivery students being killed by whites for fun, hundreds of now very old white decrepit celebs being hounded for crimes of many decades ago. All our white children have been abused in some way by us whites, and yet do I see anything really pertinent naming and shaming the Muslims' input to the UK standard of culture in their financially beneficial family habit of sexually abusing underage children for years? No, I don't. What I do see is a couple of badly written articles stating that Charlene was abused by 100 white men, and this of course is silent speak for she deserved what she got. The mere fact she got what she got from a couple of Muslim shopkeepers who ran very young girls from behind these shops with the total attraction of belonging, having a laugh and free chips has been totally ignored by everyone involved, including the police. If they had 100 white suspects at that time or even since, why haven't they been arrested and questioned? Well, because they either have never existed or the police know 1 or 2 of these supposed white male abusers was not guilty of actually murdering her and chopping her up. The prime reason that the journalists, the police and Nazir Afzal, who only took up his prestigious new appointment in 2011, should be asking is why was Charlene's body disposed of in this fashion? There's no body, there's no burial place, and she wasn't left anywhere. She was obliterated from the face of the earth. Now there is always a reason why a person or people dispose so thoroughly of a body, and in this particular case we have a choice bearing in mind the probable perpetrators, and they are. 1. Charlene was proving difficult to handle. 2. It was thought she might talk to her family or go to the police with her inside knowledge of the Blackpool seafront and the business conducted there. 3. She might have been pregnant. 4. She wanted to keep the child, which would fit in with what little I do know of Charlene. She believed that the father would marry her in the light of her pregnancy. 6. She was going to tell their families what was going on. 7. She might have told her best friends and fellow groupies. I frankly believed it was one of those reasons, if not all of them. Killing a young girl who is just fulfilling a sexual gap for yourself and your friends and providing a financial asset as well is not the normal behaviour of even our Muslim friends. There is no need to go to the trouble of doing anything other than just ditching them when they have ceased to be either attractive or they are too needy. Murder and dismemberment are crimes of hate and rejection. Charlene was murdered for a reason, and a specific one at that. Paige Shivers also has met the same fate, probably for the same reason: pregnancy. Young Laura Wilson was killed by her prime groomer and his brother, and she had given birth, but she wanted what any new mother would want, a father to stand by her, and had paid a visit to his family. Death by hitting on the head and drowning is what that particular visit earned her, and an orphaned baby. They were arrested and sentenced very quietly, and all under the misinformation of first white honour killing. My point is the media couldn't even be truthful with that one, let alone poor Charlene. Bear in mind, Charlene's death was an act of hate and desperation of being found out or being culpable for her child, and the lack of honour that would bring to those Muslim families. All good reason to treat her poor body like the meat they viewed it, and with just as much pity as a halal killing. According to phone calls recorded by the police on which the second trial relied and which were found unintelligible, the two supposedly exonerated men, Albertighi and Raveshi, were discussing the fact she had bled out and made a mess, as well as other details not revealed. You don't discuss chopping up a body unless you actually do it, but of course in the absence of a body one cannot prove how that person died, which is what drove these two murdering bastards to do just that. It was two for the price of one, both in the proving and the penalty for such. I just hope for once the media try to print the truth, or at least remain silent, instead of the trash they're now putting forward in the light of the reopening of the murder of Charlene Downs and hopefully Paige Shivers. Without a body and in the light of pro-Islamic favouritism, I very much doubt it. But what goes around comes around, and the day may come when crimes like this are punished and the media put to shame. I live for that day. And finally, a Tesco's 2 for 1. Another start to a week on a funny note with a TTFO. And this one will offend everybody, including the Brits. On a group of beautiful deserted islands in the middle of nowhere, the following people are suddenly stranded by, as you might expect, a shipwreck. 2 Italian men and 1 Italian woman, 2 French men and 1 French woman, 2 German men and 1 German woman, 2 Greek men and 1 Greek woman, 2 English men and 1 English woman, 2 Bulgarian men and 1 Bulgarian woman, 2 Japanese men and 1 Japanese woman, 2 Chinese men and 1 Chinese woman, 2 American men and 1 American woman, 2 Irish men and 1 Irish woman. 1 month later, on these same absolutely stunning deserted islands in the middle of nowhere, the following things have occurred. 1 Italian man killed the other Italian man for the Italian woman. The 2 Frenchmen and the Frenchwoman are living happily together in a ménage à trois. The 2 German men have strict weekly schedule of alternating visits with the German woman. The 2 Greek men are sleeping with each other and the Greek woman is cleaning and cooking for them. The 2 English men are waiting for someone to introduce them to the English woman. The 2 Bulgarian men took one long look at the English Ocean, another long look at the Bulgarian woman and started swimming. The 2 Japanese men have faxed Tokyo and are waiting instructions. The 2 Chinese men have set up a pharmacy, a liquor store, a restaurant and a laundry and have got the woman pregnant in order to supply employees for their stores. The 2 American men are contemplating the virtues of suicide because the American woman keeps endlessly complaining about her body, the true nature of feminism, how she can do everything they can do, the necessity of fulfilment, the equal division of household chores, how sand and palm trees make her look fat, how her last boyfriend respected her opinion and treated her nicer than they do, how her relationship with her mother is improving and how at least the taxes are low and it isn't raining. The 2 Irishmen have divided the island into north and south and set up a distillery. They do not remember if sex is in the picture because it gets sort of foggy after the first few litres of coconut whiskey, but they're satisfied because at least the English aren't having any fun. I love this one because it's such an insightful view and the old ones are the best ones. You've been listening to The World at 8. I am Lynn Mozart and I wish you all a very good night and a very quiet Guy Fawkes evening tomorrow. Again. UK news. Green energy triples UK fuel prices, may kill thousands over winter. While Prince Charles preaches the cant of global warming and admires the lifestyles of the poor in the third world, the United Kingdom is headed deep into a well of frozen misery. Green energy has meant electric poverty as cheap and efficient sources of power and heat are traded for hideously expensive and inefficient solar and wind power. That's fine for those cashing in, but prices energy out of the range of many ordinary people. Queue here to work in Britain, 2 months of such overseas recruitment. One advert reads, "Britain will remove restrictions on the labour market from 2014. Do not miss the start." World at 8. "We are just shooting ourselves in the foot yet again, or rather allowing ourselves to do so. Employers and greedy agencies, usually set up by ethnic minorities, will really love this one, while the Brits will just whine about it." Bishop fears Sharia bonds pave way for more Islamic law. David Cameron's plans to issue Sharia compliant bonds open the way to Islamic law being enforced.
You're listening to The World at 8 with Lynn Mozart. The World at 8, the number one in nationalist news.
Highlights of the news today, Monday the 4th of November 2013. Green energy triples UK fuel prices, may kill thousands over winter. Queue here to work in Britain. Bishop fears Sharia bonds pave way for more Islamic law. Greece's Golden Dawn accuses government of neglect. Greece, police identify semi-automatic pistol used in slaying of 2 Golden Dawn party members. Melting starfish along the west coast prompt Fukushima concerns. 4-year-old girl raped at school in Pakistan. In midst of Syrian war, giant Jesus statue arises. Nepali Hindu leaders ban women from school during menstruation. Thought for the day, Charlene, the truth, but not as the media sees it. And finally, Tesco's 2 for 1, before doors open to more EU migrant workers, NHS, fast food firms and hotel chains recruit cheap labour in Romania. Ahead of Britain opening its borders in January, weekly job fairs are being held in the capital, Bucharest. And dozens of recruitment websites are advertising low-skilled jobs in this country, some offering the promise of cash daily and others claiming knowledge of English is not necessary. The roles vary from minimum wage bartending to a £34,000 a year job as an NHS midwife, which comes with a relocation package, raising questions over the cost